Boom, bim, boom, ding, dong, bim, dong, para, boom, bim, boom, bim, boom, bim, boom, para. Cantar al Señor un cántico nuevo, cantar al Señor un cántico nuevo, cantar al Señor un cántico nuevo, cantar al Señor, cantar al Señor. Oh, sing to the Lord. Oh, sing God a new song. Oh, sing to the Lord. Oh, sing God a new song. Oh, sing to the Lord. Oh, sing God a new song. Oh, sing to our God. Oh, sing to our God. Cantad al Señor. Alabadle con arpa. Cantad al Señor. Alabadle con arpa. Cantad al Señor. Alabadle con arpa. Cantad al Señor. Cantad al Señor. So dance for our God and blow all the trumpets. So dance for our God and blow all the trumpets. So dance for our God and blow all the trumpets. Oh, sing to our God. Oh, sing to our God. Jesús es Señor, amén, aleluya. Jesús es Señor, amén, aleluya. Jesús es Señor, amén, aleluya. Cantar al Señor, 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 cantar al Señor.
Our hymn of the day for Pentecost 20 is Cantad al Senor, a delightfully rhythmic setting of Psalm 98. Our hymnist, Gerhard Cartford, and Polly, his wife, were attending a clergy conference in Brazil where they heard the tune. He brought it back to their home in Buenos Aires, where they were living. He wrote 4 additional Spanish verses, provided the English translation, and since it's been included in over 22 hymnals. Dr. Cartford was my teacher, my mentor, my hero. 4 years together at Texas Lutheran is a time I dearly treasure. Under him, I sang in the cantor choir, a choir of men who served weekly and on Sundays at church. He also directed the chapel choir, a woman's ensemble who also served in worship. That choir's soaring descants were always a highlight. You've heard them sung by the choir and played by the orchestra at Calvary. He led a small group of us to Europe and behind the Iron Curtain, greatly broadening our horizons. He did this also with his contemporary music class, which challenged our concepts of harmony, melody, and rhythm. We explored all the contemporary composers like John Cage and Luciano Berio, with whom I eventually was happily to study. We also studied all the 12-tone compositions and theory of Arnold Schoenberg and Alvin Berg, and Georg Ligeti, whose soundtrack you would know from the 2001 A Space Odyssey, which brought him immense fame. Of course, we also studied Stravinsky, whom we were able to meet, and Olivier Messiaen, whose works I embraced and still love. And just imagine, we did this at 6:30 in the morning because it was the only time all the pupils who wanted to take the course didn't have a conflict with their other class schedules. Yet Dr. Cartford graciously agreed to meet us at 6:30 in the morning. He was demanding and strict, not only in theory, but also in history and analysis. His hymn, Great God Our Source, written in collaboration with poet George Utek, inspired me to compose my first organ composition based on a hymn tune. Gerhard Malling Cartford, born in 1923 to missionary parents in Fort Dauphin, Madagascar. His papa was Pastor Richard Heyerdahl Christofferson Cartford, and his mama was Marie Mortensen Cartford. He began his studies at St. Olaf, went off and served in World War II, and returned to graduate magna cum laude with a Bachelor of Music degree. He then attended the Union Theological Seminary in New York City, where he earned his Master's of Sacred Music degree, and he then studied chant at St. John's Abbey. A lifelong love of his, he shared his love with us and taught us all about chant at Texas Lutheran. He had a course in liturgy, and it was thoroughly rigorous. It included guest lecturers from various denominations, as well as class visits to churches to participate in their worship. He was an ecumenical enthusiast. His course remains profoundly influential in my life and work in worship, music, and the arts. A year later, as a Fulbright scholar doing research in Norway, he also worked as an organist and choirmaster, returned to the States and served in the Midwest, and at Luther Seminary, where, according to Paul Westermeyer, quote, he studied theology in order to understand the place of music in the Church's life. His dissertation, Music in the Norwegian Lutheran Church, earned him his doctorate from the University of Minnesota. He taught at Texas Lutheran for 13 years in Seguin, Texas, and then continued his teaching at Luther Seminary in St. Paul. He was a leader of the post-Vatican liturgical movement and was instrumental in the development of the Lutheran Book of Worship. His writings about worship and music are published internationally in journals and books. In 1958, he helped found the Lutheran Society for Worship, Music, and the Arts, and served as editor of the Society's highly respected academic journal, Response. The Society was interested in the promotion of Christian worship, music, ecclesiastical architecture, art, and literature within the Lutheran Church in the U.S. and Canada. Local chapters were encouraged to hold events. I remember a couple at Texas Lutheran. One was the incredible conversation and dialogue we had following a performance of Benjamin Britten's The War Requiem, and a dynamic worship service employing Luther's Deutsche Messe in the Chapel of the Abiding Presence. His knowledge and appreciation of Hispanic liturgy and hymnody grew from his years in South America. In 1977, Gerhard and Polly, his wife, moved to South America, accepting an invitation from the American Lutheran Church in Colombia to develop their cultural resources. He expanded on from Colombia to Mexico, to Brazil, on to Argentina, and finally to Chile, helping produce provisional worship books in both Spanish and Portuguese. He organized the first Latin American Lutheran liturgical consultation in 1986 in Caracas, Venezuela, and in 1990 he coordinated the worship music for the 8th Lutheran World Federation and edited their supplemental hymnal Laudamus for that event. He was the moving force and general editor of the ELCA Spanish worship book. We can thank him for the wonderful Spanish hymns we love so much today. In 2016, with his wife and granddaughter by his side, he breathed his last at the age of 92. Prior to his death, he donated his papers, including his extensive collection of world music and liturgy, to Luther Seminary, where it resides today. The renowned liturgist Gordon Lathrop wrote, quote, Gerhard Cartford, a gentle, gracious, and learned man, deeply committed to the best in liturgical renewal. He significantly helped the voice of the people of God as they sing around the mystery of Christ. He was especially gifted in enabling others to see the work that had to be done and helping them do it. Indeed, he enabled me and helped me to do my work. Rest eternal grant him, O Lord, and may light perpetual shine upon him.